Hello everyone, my name is Thomas, and in this presentation I'll be discussing MBTI personality types and how psychology researchers explore them using two empirical methods, experimental and non-experimental research methods. So first, I'll give a brief overview of the MBTI and how it fits within personality psychology. Then I'll introduce two real studies, one using experimental methods and the other using non-experimental methods. Both examine MBTI in student learning contexts. I will explain the study's goals, methods, findings, and compare the research design. So, first, what is MBTI? MBTI stands for the Myers-Briggs Type Indicator. It's a widely used personality assessment tool developed by the theories of Carl Jung. MBTI classifies people into 16 distinct personality types based on four psychological dimensions: extroversion versus introversion, sensing versus intuition, thinking versus feeling, and judging versus perceiving. Each person receives a four-letter code or type, such as INFP or ESTJ, based on their preferences. For example, I have done a lot of tests and uh, I got always, uh, not an exception, with no exception, I got a ISTP. So, how does this work? Each of the four dichotomies represents a different psychological preferences. Extroversion and introversion describe whether people draw energy from social interaction or solitude. Solitude. Sensing and intuition reflect on how individuals gather information, either through observable facts or abstract ideas. Thinking and feeling involve decision making, either through logic or emotional values. And finally, judging and perceiving reveal how people approach the outside world, structured and planned, or adaptable and spontaneous. These combinations form a unique personality profile used for understanding oneself and others, especially in education, team dynamics, and career development. So let's compare methods overview, research methods. Experimental versus non-experimental research. Experimental research involves manipulating variables and using controls to determine cause and effect relationships. It's useful when testing hypotheses about interventions. Non-experimental research, on the other hand, involves observing and measuring variables without interference. These studies are often correlational or descriptive, and they help researchers understand relationships but they cannot prove causation. So I'll introduce you to both studies I used for this presentation. Uh, Both focus on student populations and how MBTI influences their learning, uh, but they use different research methods. The first study, published in 2024, is experimental. It examines whether using MBTI to customize a gamified learning platform can increase student academic motivation. The second study, from 2020, is non-experimental. It investigates how students' MBTI types correlate with their preferred teaching methods. So this is my first study, the experimental. Uh, it was conducted by Rinjani uh, Rakhmawati, Rakhmawati and Nadli Fatin in 2024. These researchers are affiliated with universities in Indonesia, working in education and technology. Their study appeared in the peer-reviewed Journal of Information Technology Education in the section of research. The goal was to investigate whether gamified learning, customized by MBTI type, could improve student motivation. Um, Methods. The study involved 32 university students. Each student first completed an MBTI assessment to determine their type. Then they took a pretest measuring academic motivation. They used an online learning platform that featured gamified elements like badges, leaderboards, levels, games, etc., etc., specifically tailored to their MBTI preferences. After using the platform over several sessions, the students completed a post-test measuring their motivation again. And let's go to the results. The results showed a noticeable increase in students' academic motivation, particularly intrinsic motivation. After interacting with the MBTI customized gamified platform, this suggests that aligning educational experiences with personality types can make learning more engaging. Although the study used a one group pre-test and post-test design and lacked a control group, the researchers were still able to show an impact from the intervention, qualifying this experiment as an experimental research approach. So this is our second study, the non-experimental. It was conducted by Murphy, Edulji, Kruto, and Parkman in 2020. These faculty members at St. Joseph's College of Maine published their work in the peer-reviewed International Journal of Research in Education and Science. Their goal was to examine whether students' MBTI types were associated with different learning style preferences. What was the method? The researchers surveyed 507 undergraduate students. Participants first completed the official MBTI inventory to determine their type. Then they completed a questionnaire about their preferred teaching methods, such as lectures, class discussions, group projects, visual aids, pop-up quizzes, etc., etc. The researchers looked for trends in preference based on their personality type. And what are the results? The study found clear trends across MBTI categories. Extroverts, for instance, were more likely to prefer group work and open discussions, while introverts, like me, preferred solo learning and structured environments. Sensing types liked detailed instruction, while intuitive types lean towards big picture discussions. These findings suggest that personality may play a big role in shaping educational preferences. Because there was no manipulation or intervention, this study is considered non-experimental and correlational. This is the comparison between the two studies. The experimental study had a smaller sample size but tested direct intervention, customizing learning platforms to MBTI types. It was able to demonstrate a potential causal relationships between personalized learning and increased motivation. The non-experimental study, with a much larger sample, didn't involve any changes or treatment. Instead, it observed naturally existing differences in preference across MBTI types. It provided rich descriptive data, but could not determine cause and effect. What's interesting is how these two approaches complement each other. The experimental study helped us understand what might happen when we apply MBTI in real learning environments. The non-experimental study helped us understand why students might respond differently in the first place. One asks, does this work? While the other study asks, what are the patterns we see? Together, they give a fuller picture of the relationship between MBTI and learning. Strengths and weaknesses. Each study has its own strengths and limitations. The experimental design's strength lies in its ability to suggest causation. It tested an actual intervention. However, it had a small sample size and lacked a control group, which limits how much we can generalize these findings. The non-experimental design's strength is its large sample and realistic setting, but it can only identify associations, not cause-effect relationships. Both types of research are important for building knowledge in psychology. And when can we use each one? Experimental methods are best when we want to test the effect of a specified strategy or tool, like customized learning content. They work well for cause and effect questions. Non-experimental methods, in the other hand, are ideal for identifying general trends, patterns, or relationships that exist naturally, especially when manipulation is impossible or ethical. Researchers often use both approaches at different stages of a project. What is the conclusion? To sum up, MBTI is a widely used framework for understanding personality differences. The two studies I discussed highlight how experimental and non-experimental methods can offer complementary insights, and non-experimental can, yeah, experimental research shows us outcomes of specific interventions, while non-experimental research helps us recognize existing traits and preferences. Understanding the strengths of each method, strengths and weaknesses, help us make better use of psychological research in real-world settings like classroom. And that's it. My presentation. That's it for my presentation. These are the references, and thank you so much for listening.